Before we begin this assignment, I need to go over a few things about how to arrange a still life. So we are going to be using our stools as kind of a table, like a prop, and you're going to select two or more objects to put on that stool. I do recommend that you put the stool in between you and a neighbor so that you both can look at the same stool. Not sure if you can see this, but I put the stool in between the two easel legs. So I put it in between the easel I was at and the neighboring easel. And that's just to kind of keep it out of the way. It means you'll either glance down to the left or to the right to view your objects. So this means that you are essentially looking down on the objects. You do need to draw them from the point of view of which they are positioned. If you want to shift them, you can turn them on their sides. Just make sure that they don't fall off of the stool. Now today we're going to be talking about something that's very important to drawing and painting. That is negative space. It's the space that's not really there. It's open air. And this is important because you want to use negative space to help you define areas. It helps my drawings become more accurate. So it's one of the things that I use pretty much all the time whenever I draw something. I look specifically for negative space, also positive space too, but we'll get to that in another lesson. I'm starting out by drawing the basic positive shape. So I'm looking at that object. This is an opportunity for you to observe from life. You've got to make sure that you're trying to document exactly what you see on paper. Just so that you're aware, I'm using a stick of vine charcoal, and that's so that it shows up on the big screen. If I use pencil, it won't show up. I also really like vine charcoal. It's an easy medium to erase if you need to erase something. So I start off very loose with my drawing. So I'm going kind of generic or in general with my sketch. It looks rough. I would suggest that when you're doing this, you use pencil, but do it very lightly with pencil. You also need to be doing this life-sized. Life-sized means the actual size of the object. You can have an object go off paper. And again, you're doing 2 to 3 or more objects. There are some things that I'm doing that is helping me to get it accurate. I'm comparing the height, like of that little teapot, to the width, and I'm going to do the same thing with the bottle. I also use dividing lines, so I'll make a vertical access line right down the center of the bottle to help me with the bottleneck, to make sure that it's not on crooked, that it's not off to one side, that it's right in the center. So you want to spend some time drawing this. You don't need to put in a ton of details. It's really the outline or the contour of the object that is the most important thing. When you're drawing things like a handle, it's super important that you pay attention to that empty space. Don't assume you already know what it is going to be, that shape. Oftentimes it can be interesting, like a semi-heart or a different shape. Like this one's an interesting shape. It's kind of like a sphere, but it's not. And then there's like that beautiful triangle that's occurring between the spout and the bottle. This is the general shape. I'm going to go in and redefine it and be a little bit more articulate in describing it. So this is a little bit more accurate. I committed to the lines. I kind of erased the spout because I had it positioned too low. So accuracy is important. You do have a box of pastels. They look like this. They're oil pastels. You're going to choose a color. I like using a darker color, just so that the negative space is dark in contrast to the positive space, which is light. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to be starting to shade around those objects. Now you want to avoid going in there, and I would say try and avoid outlining the objects. I like to keep my stroke consistent, which means that the mark I make with my pastel pencil, I like to keep it going one way. I love using hatching. That's something you're going to see throughout the year, that I like to do that when I'm drawing. I'm not saying that you have to. So your job is to fill in anything that is not occupied space. And here's a time lapse of that happening. So I go in kind of rough at first, just like I did with the drawing. Start off rough, and then you go in and you fill in some of those gaps. And it takes quite a bit of time. I spent like 10 minutes just filling it in. You're also going to notice that your pastel pencil will whittle down. It is okay for you to peel the paper back, just do it gently. Just as a reminder, this is 1/4 done. And you have 3 more other quarters to fill in. And what I'd like you to do is switch out your objects when you do it. Find another couple or several objects. When you're choosing objects, I always like to look for objects that are different. So I would avoid choosing 2 of the exact same. And I would also try and find some differences in height or the outline shape. So look for a variety. That's one of those tips that I'm going to give you that we're going to continue to talk about throughout the year as well. And again, different color for each one. I did go ahead and erase out my pencil outline on that drawing, or the fine charcoal outline, so that the positive space reads as a clear shape.